a secret behind a Soho door. There is a reason I found a reason beneath the subway floor. I found the water, the devil's water, and walked along its shore. Is that what you want? Is that what you really want? This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, deep from the bowels of our underground lair, often canceled but never knocked down. How you doing?
Do we ever get out of our underground lair? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, not when we're recording the show,
okay.
but I seem to spend plenty of time above ground.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think you're just living here permanently.
Well, it seems like it more and more these days. But
you and their other Karens, you all live in the.
Now I'm a Karen.
Wouldn't you hate to have the name Karen?
I know. It's
who named your kid Karen right now? You got to come up with a man's name though. What's the man's name?
I don't know.
Girly man kind of name. What do we call it? It's got to be one of these dorky trendy names or something.
Yeah.
You know that people keep
like Chase or no.
Well, or like
no.
Some very, nobody can name their kid Mike or Bill or anything like that anymore.
Right.
It has to be some trendy special name with extra syllables. I mean, it just, for some reason, even your name and my name. I mean,
yeah.
Rarely do you see somebody with those little kids with those names.
Right.
It's just what's going on.
Yeah. Not to, hurt anybody's feelings out there that's named Chase. We love you. You're listening to the show. You can't help what your parents named you, but you need to have a talk with them.
Somebody that's named Chase, I want to know what their middle name is. Like a cross or something?
Cars?
I mean, what? Yeah. Yeah, Chase. I mean, you're a verb. I mean, just,
Wow.
No offense. No offense. Actually, I don't care if you're offended. It doesn't matter. Yeah. All right, Jay. Weird names, and I'll tell you these are. By the way, what was that song again?
That song is called "I Am a River."
No, hold on.
Well, you got the title now. So who is it by?
The song is called "I Am a River."
Yeah. Who's it by?
I don't know.
See, I could even give you the title of this one. That's great.
What song has a river in it? I know what songs with rivers.
It's not Old Man River.
Oh, it's not.
No.
Deep River. I don't know. Who is it?
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard
regular
of them.
feature on the beginning of the podcast.
Are they?
Oh yeah.
Huh. Is that the band Stevie Nicks was in?
What? That was Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, same difference. Well, they're close.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
Dave Grohl.
They both start with an F.
Dave Grohl from Nirvana is the one who fronts Foo Fighters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like a 90s and current band. 90s through today. Not Fleetwood Mac, I think, stopped recording music back in the 80s.
Well, I was only a decade off. That's like a quarter of a point. That's not that.
They
both start with F.
My word.
Minneapolis, we're grading on the curve.
So does John Fogerty, I guess. You didn't
hey, I know what
him.
band he's from.
Yeah?
That one band.
Yeah.
No. What is he from? Don't tell me. Proud Mary. I can. CCR.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
So, anyway, getting off the tunes. Jay, why does it not seem that long ago that we talked about a bonding bill? And you and I may be the only show in this state that actually broke that down. Yeah. You heard an analysis on a bonding bill anywhere other than this program?
No. And you're right, it wasn't that long ago.
We should look it up. It was maybe about 10 episodes
ago. By the way, I just want to say this is episode 201. We're breaking into the new 100 right here.
Oh, that's right.
We're going to expand our horizons, get bigger and bolder and better, and
maybe you'll get franchise tag next year.
Maybe.
I mean, I swear it was probably November, October.
Yeah, it was late. I'm trying to remember because we're dealing
special session in October.
It was before things shut down again. So because I remember
maybe after the election, before Thanksgiving.
I'm trying to remember
because I remember it took us a while to break it. It was one of those We found out everything in it after it passed. And it was not easy to break down where the money was going. I mean, you know, those kind of things. I mean, it takes forever to find exactly.
October 26th.
Oh, okay.
That's when the governor signed it.
Okay, but we did a show maybe 3 weeks after that when
within 3 weeks, yeah.
When everything. Okay, so go back about a dozen episodes, not that many, and you'll find it.
Yeah.
Early Christmas Present or something? Was that the show? I'm trying to think.
It might have been. Yeah, the one where it has. Is that the one where it has Governor Walz as the Grinch in the photo?
You could put that permanently.
The Walls that stole Christmas. Is that where that was?
You're killing me, Walz. That's probably the best saying on a mask that I've seen. You're killing me, Walz. But Jay, don't think that we're done.
No.
Don't think we're done bonding.
We've already spent all the money that we can spend. Everything's funded. We're able to just sit back.
Yeah, we now have a surplus, supposedly. In other words, we're overtaxed again.
Oh.
Did you see that? The new forecast now
No, I did not.
project a surplus for the next biennium, which starts July 1st.
So that's why we're going to bond.
I,
Because we've got money.
No.
So we're going to take out debt. We're going to take out a loan for money we already have.
No, the governor explains this. Okay, he
Okay.
explains this. This is from NPR. Title is Walz unveils $518 million infrastructure proposal. Now, I love the titles of some of these things.
Yeah.
Technically, what are they calling this? They're calling this bill something in particular.
Oh, of course, you got to have a fancy name, Andrew, because if you can't sell people on the bill without reading it, then you're going to lose the fight. If you got to name it something like the
Bill of Rights of something before
puppy dogs and or the Super American Equality Act or the
well, look at the Obamacare. What's its technical name? Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. KSTP actually.com, which has a similar. Walz announces $518 million bonding bill. Those are the two sites I'm getting this from.
Yep.
Okay. And I do not have real specifics, but we do have outlines. The governor called this the 2021 Local Jobs and Projects Plan.
oh my word.
The capital investment recommendation for the current legislative session. So I guess I shouldn't laugh, but it's, by the way, this is $240 million proposal in what's called GOB, General Obligation Bonds, backed by the full faith and credit of government to tax your ass off. $250 million in appropriation bonds, meaning the interest payments and such come out of the general fund. And then $28 million, which will be financed immediately, not the interest.
Right.
Okay. So that's how they break. I don't know why they break it down that way. Probably because that's their funny way of balancing the budget. Here's a quote from the governor. And I wish we had a laugh track. I wish we had a laugh track on this show sometimes. Quote, "This is one of the most fiscally conservative things you can do. By investing in these types of projects when the interest rates are low, they will make an impact."
Oh, they sure will on your wallet.
So one of the most fiscally conservative things. Now, first off, a bonding bill gets proposed every year, whether the interest rates are high and low, whether the economy is good or bad, whether there's a need or there isn't. Everybody's in line to get their dough from the state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are planning to going to, bonding 10 years from now. They're planning things. So it's BS to claim that this is some sort of now or never thing. Listen to this. The recommendation from the governor, this is again from KSTP.com, and you can find more at NPR, but pretty much the same article. $43 million for security upgrades at the Capitol. $43 million.
Wow. So that's just going right into their pocket.
Well, I mean, 43 million plus interest.
Oh, right.
Not to make a fortress out of the Capitol, said the governor, but to make it safe for visitors and those that are working there. So our capital is now going to be basically Fort Knox.
Right.
Of course, it includes the long debated bailout of Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Of course.
I guess nobody has insurance down there.
It keeps coming back. I mean, they tried to get this into the last bonding bill, didn't they? And
the governor tried to push this in a special session.
Yeah.
He tried to make it part of the, what do you call it, where they gave money to
CARES
businesses
Act.
or something like that. Yeah, he tried to put it in all of that. None of that's gone through. Nobody is saying what happened and the folks who committed arson was a good thing, said the governor. Many of them have been arrested and punished for it, really. I haven't heard much about that. It doesn't change the fact that the damage of what they did is still there and is hurting all of us economically. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what, Mr. Governor? You should pay for it personally. That's what I think. Your incompetence was part of what led to that.
right.
And by the way, does anybody have insurance? I'm just asking. I mean, if a building gets torched by somebody,
Yeah.
do they run to the government for a bond? I mean, I'm just...
And that's not really even on the store owners. I mean, they should have their own insurance, but whoever the landlords are.
Well, that's what I mean.
They definitely have to have
a
insurance.
lot of them are big companies, too.
Because you can't rent space out, especially in Minneapolis. I mean, look at the regulations in like St. Louis Park and Golden Valley and things around Minneapolis. They don't allow that kind of stuff for rentals. They're not going to allow, these landlords to lease out spaces without having something in place in the event of calamity.
But I mean, $150 million bucks?
Yeah.
The plan includes $100 million in housing infrastructure bonds to preserve and build new housing across the state. Huh? Where does that go?
Why is the state building housing?
Right, but why? Where do those bonds go? Who's getting that money?
Right.
Is it government? Is it contractors? Is it? I mean, you got land, okay, that's either owned by the government or in private hands.
Right.
You want to build housing on that. How does the money go from? How does it get spent in bonds? To build that house? Isn't that a contract between a builder and then you get your permits, you rezone the land? I mean, what does the state have to do? Where does this $100 million go?
Yeah, well, the
Or
article
is this
doesn't-
subsidizing? Well, of course.
Well, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. I mean,
it goes where it goes. It's like water.
right,
It's like spilling water on the table.
right. Well, that's the thing, and they don't really, even in the bills, a lot of times, lay it out that well. But yeah, I mean, they'll say X amount is going to go to this, but exactly how they're going to spend that money, I find, isn't really laid out in those bills that way. Giving them the leeway to be able to spend it kind of how they wish.
But I just want to know, where does the check for $100 million? Of course, it's not a check; it's an IOU.
Right.
But who gets it?
Well, I mean, we know when people buy bonds.
I mean,
right?
I'm asking that a little bit facetiously,
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I understand a general obligation bond. I mean, when you write those, that it's backed by the government's power to tax. But I'm just kind of curious, how does it go from point A to point B? I mean, listen to this.
Okay.
An additional $15 million is designated to projects by community organizers that serve people of color and Native Americans.
Whitey need not apply.
Yeah, but I mean, talk about a broad brush. I mean, what is that exactly? Is that what? You got a black neighborhood or a, quote, Indian neighbor? I mean, what do you want to call it? We're on a reservation, which, of course, has their own governance, by the way.
Yeah.
And what you're going to put projects by community organizations that, so what? The money's going to go to blankety blank foundation that serves
Could, or community organizations could be anything from women's health to
Just great journalism here. I'm amazed at the journalism. They're really interested in finding out additional projects that make use of federal funds. Where we have to match the money,
Right.
where we lose it, include a state veterans cemetery in Redwood Falls, and the planning efforts for a second daily Amtrak train between the Twin Cities and Chicago.
Criminy.
The first one's so full, going from the Twin Cities to Chicago
Can't
every
get another
day
person on it.
that we have to have another one. Lawmakers passed a $1.9 billion bonding bill last year. It took them till October to get the job done. Of course, that's not good enough.
Right.
3/5 of the House and Senate need to support a bonding bill. That's all the Democrats with maybe a half dozen Republicans, probably.
Yeah, and this next sentence, I mean, it really does tell it all. And I want our listeners to get this. Democrats will need the support of House Republicans to pass any bonding bill. If it passes, you can thank a Republican.
Yeah, you can. Well, and judging by what it passed by last time, the House vote being 100 to 34,
Yeah.
and the Senate vote being 64 to 3,
Right.
there's a good chance that this gets passed in some way, shape, or form. Remember, in fact, listen to this. With the low interest rates, Minnesota's AAA bond rating, which means very little. Remember, the bond rating is for investors.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with government.
People keep getting that mixed up.
A Moody's rating has all that means is that we bond a lot and keep putting them in your IRAs because Minnesota, you always come back to them.
Yeah.
There's no reason Minnesota shouldn't have a robust jobs and local projects bill this year, said Representative Fooley. TFL Minneapolis. Now is the time to invest in Minnesota. You know what I call that? I call that a bunch of foolie. That's what I call it. That's what we're going to call this from now on. Foolie.
You can
Throw away
never
that foolie.
You can never borrow your way to like good financial standing. You know, you can't do it.
I mean, if you're putting the car payment on the credit card, you're in a bad situation. Maybe not this month.
Yeah,
but you are eventually.
And I've maybe explained this on a previous podcast, and maybe I haven't. But there are two types of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Good debt is where you go into debt to acquire something that makes you money. Like you need this for your business, you go into debt, but this thing makes you money.
Or it has, on the flip side of that, it has depreciation value, which you can write off.
Right. So there are things that allow you to get financial gain off of that thing. Bad debt is anytime you buy anything with debt, and it does not do that. It does not give you a financial return. It doesn't create prosperity. It just is debt. You bought something, you didn't have the money, and now you're paying it back with interest. You know,
That's how you get in trouble.
that is, but that's what we do every time. We try to spend our way into prosperity, and we try to borrow our way into prosperity, and it never works.
Hello, federal government. That's all they do.
Well, that's beginning to be all we do in Minnesota, too.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Republicans, your party, okay? Remember,
what?
in the Senate, Tom Bach is the head of the Senate Capital Investment Committee, the former Democratic Senate Majority Leader.
Yeah, good job.
That's who by the way, the NPR calls this a binding bill.
Yeah. Well, there's some truth to that.
A little bit of a boo-boo.
There's some truth to that. It is a binding bill.
Yeah, Bach seemed to give his usual, this is like Bach 8.0 here, giving his usual denial here, that he's blah, 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 blah. But I think he's going to vote for it if anything shows his history on this. But don't worry, Republicans. Your leader in the House, Kurt Doubt, says he's willing to discuss a proposal as long as it's small.
Meaning what?
Of course, he said this last time, and the bonding bill went from $2 billion to 1.95. So,
This
I mean,
one
again, conservative. He cut something out of it. It could have been worse.
It'll be 495,000.
Yeah, it'd be something like that.
Yeah.
It depends on the projects, Doubt said. I doubt he's telling the truth. If there are projects that are necessary, with no definition to what that means, that should be worked on. We're certainly open to it. In a non-bonding year, we traditionally do a small bonding bill, something in the $100 to $150 million range. Okay, so let me interpret that for you. The Republicans are Walz is starting at 518. The Republicans have already committed to 150. I mean, Doubt's pretty much saying this is going to happen.
Yep.
So now starts the game of chicken.
Yes.
And we all know where it will end up. The Republicans will pass a bonding bill, and they won't get dickened for it in return. Just like last time.
Right.
That's where we're headed.
Let me say this. In a non-binding year, we traditionally do a small bonding bill. If you traditionally do a bonding bill, that makes it a bonding year. Because you're bonding in that year, traditionally, over and over and over. It doesn't matter the size of your bonding bill. It is a bonding year.
I didn't even catch that.
This is why all politicians need to retire. This is insane. Yeah, I mean, Kurt Doubt is already saying it's going to happen. Tom Bach, who the Republicans allowed to be the chair of that committee, who, yes, came straight out of the DFL over to the independent part, or as an independent senator, so he could save his seat. The way he's talking, I mean, listen to what he says. At the appropriate time, I am hopeful the legislature and the governor will again come together to produce a bonding bill focused on the critical needs of Minnesotans. So he's not saying, you know what, this isn't the right time, we're not going to borrow the money. No, I'm hopeful we're going to come up with a bonding bill that everybody can agree to. So where's an advocate for those of us that don't want it? Who wants the state to stop spending money, who wants us to be more fiscally responsible, who wants us to stop wasting money on stupid things. I mean, I know that there are certain things that a government needs to spend money on. I'm not denying that. I'm not arguing that point. From a state perspective, there are freeways that are going to need construction. State troopers need to get paid, whatever. The DNR,
The state
with
has
lake maintenance.
They've got legitimate functions from the Constitution.
Absolutely. But, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that they are not going to need to do. And when they do pass this, you can bet that we're going to be on air talking about what's in it so that you can see that this was not necessary.
Tune in May.
Yeah.
Tune in when we traditionally...
Yes, when we traditionally talk about a non-traditional bond.
Yeah, last year the show was in October or November, but
yes,
you go to previous years and it's in May or June when, once again, we find out what's in it afterward.
Yes.
I think you're right. I think there's no doubt that we're going to see something. Here's my question. Why is it that we're now projecting a budget surplus? Why is it that surplus money, which is technically over taxation, why is it that if there is a need for, and again, I define the term need a little bit differently. If there are projects, I mean, I object to anything that's not a statewide, thing. I mean, that's I think the first thing that I think that we've got to start redefining what a statewide project means or how it benefits everybody. But again, if you've got a surplus of over $1 billion, why do we need a bonding bill of $500 million? I mean, Can I just throw something out there?
Yeah.
How about we cut taxes by $500 million and use the other $500 million on this? I mean, let's start there. I still don't like that.
No.
But that's better than $500 million in debt and them keeping $100 billion of overtaxation.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's where the Republicans should be at. They shouldn't even be in it. Say, wait a minute. We got a huge surplus here. Let's see where this breaks down. Let's see what it really ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
Let's wait a little bit into this economic recovery. And if we have it, I still think we're headed toward inflation. But
I do too.
I mean,
They're artificially depressing it right now by printing all this money.
Yeah, but that, again, but you're already seeing
can't do that.
You're already
forever.
seeing the higher prices. Look at gas prices. Look at food prices. I mean, you're already seeing the increase in that you can't hold that down forever before natural cyclical macroeconomics are going to.
It'll catch up. I mean, the Fed's not going to be able to keep interest rates as low as they are forever. They're going to come up, and you look at gas prices and it affects all of the shipping and the stuff that
the whole supply chain that we've been talking about. I know. Yeah, I mean, I wonder how high they're going to go. I mean, it's up about 60 cents a gallon just since January.
I have heard that it'll go pretty close to $4 a gallon by the time summer is in full swing.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, well, it got up there under Obama, and you got a lot of the same people running the show over there. So
yeah, it did. I mean, I think as long as the fracking can continue, and as long as I think that eventually will pull us down again, but. We're much more energy independent than we used to be.
Not for long, with the pipelines shut down and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a reaction to that too. I mean,
it definitely is.
I mean, a loss of jobs too,
as
well. So yeah, look, we're not going to solve those problems. I mean, it's go to NPR News. KSTP for some just rousing journalism there. Investigative reporting.
I'll link them on the blog since they'll be so worth people's time. Come on out to COMMSolutionsMN.com and I'll link them out.
I just say this.
Yeah.
You want to learn about bonds, listen to our programs.
Yeah.
We break it down, very, very well. All they care about are the politics and blah, blah, blah. But I really want to go back to seeing where this money really goes, seeing how it's actually dispersed.
Right.
Because once you get the money from these bonds that are written, they got to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does this go to? I mean, for example, think a few years ago when we actually broke the story that the city of New Hope was getting $2 billion for their pool reconstruction or something. It was Ann Rest and a few other people who stuck that into a bonding bill.
Right.
How, did that money go to the city? Did that go to the contractors? Does it, how is that dispersed exactly?
Right.
I don't know. Nobody cares to find. Hello, journalists, anywhere. I mean, you get paid to do this crap. Why aren't you finding it out? Speaking of that, Jay.
Yes.
You will also turn on the news and you will hear nothing of the Central Mississippi River Regional Planning Partnership.
Ugh.
Bet KSTP's never done a segment on this before.
I already don't like it.
I put the term regional with anything, and I think that causes your blood pressure to go up more than that cheeseburger salad you had a little while ago. That Framework 2030 engagement. Jay, we are at regionalplanningpartnership.org to introduce you to this Central Mississippi River group.
Sounds so positive when you say it.
It does it?
No.
Oh, okay. I didn't think it did. I didn't think I was very positive.
No.
My computer just froze.
Oh, boy.
No, hang on.
So let me explain before we get into this.
Okay.
And I kind of did mention, I don't remember if this was on our podcast or yours. For those of you who don't know, there's the Andrew Richter podcast. You can find it on Spotify. It'll be available on your phones here. We've done 3 episodes, and we got more coming.
You got beauties coming.
It's gonna be good. It was good. It has been good. Long form interviews with people that just interesting conversations. So check that out. But I think it was on that podcast instead of this one. It could have been this one though. Oh, maybe it was. I mentioned it in the last one, episode 200. Anyways,
one of them.
Minnesota is divided up into 10 segments.
It's Mado.
That's correct. The Minnesota Association of Development Organizations oversees.
It was episode 200
Yep.
because we talked about the episode to go back and listen to where we first discovered that.
Yes. So Mado, under Mado, there are 10 regional development organizations or regional governments that span across the state, except for a little sliver that runs from St. Cloud, kind of down the Mississippi River, all the way to the southeast corner of the state. Notwithstanding is the metro area, which is under the Metropolitan Council. Well, guess what? We have, to solve that problem, the Mississippi River Regional Planning Partnership, regional government that is going to be in this corridor alongside the Mississippi River, along I-94 in that area.
Well, and remember, this started as a
Yes.
thing to expand Highway 25.
Yes.
And then, of course, it morphs into something else.
Yes.
They got together a handful of years ago, 2016 or 17 or something like that. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then once this partnership, and we should mention, this is Big Lake, Monticello, Becker, along with their townships, as well as Sherburne Ice Cream County, Wright County. Is there a Monticello's in Wright County?
I think so. I know it goes out like as far as Buffalo, and then it comes back around, I think, by Monticello.
Okay.
Yeah.
Buffalo, Rockford. Okay. And then Silver Creek Township as well.
I've played there.
You have?
I have. That is, if you go up 94 and you go west, what is right there at that exit? And it's a little ways west of 94, not a bunch, but yeah. It's up that direction past Monticello.
Okay, because I thought, okay. So all of Wright County has to be in this group, even though
Right.
there's a sliver of Wright County
Yeah.
in this, but of course they have to be there. So those are the partners that have created this group. I don't know how they get paid. I mean, I don't know that. I don't know where the money comes from this. I'm assuming they get something, Jay. They somehow get
for their time. I don't know. And this is the way that these things work. They're made up of elected and appointed people, staff members from cities, elected people from cities. But you're not electing them to this group to do this thing. That's the problem.
So, in other words, they're being elected to something, and then they're serving on something else. And of course, you can't serve two masters. I mean, that's one of the problems that I feel like we run into on these groups. They have a structure. They have a fund balance policy, even though they don't tell you where they get. And they have a joint powers agreement. I mean, this is chaired by a Wright County commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Even though very little goes into Wright County. The mayor of Becker is the vice chair. Treasurer is your pal and friend, Tim Dolan, from Sherburne County. And the secretary is Barry, oh boy.
Heineken.
It's
Yes.
Heikkinen.
Heikkinen. Come on, it's a Finnish name.
Well, I'm finished with it.
There.
So they had. So like I said, 2017 they had visions and goals, but it was It was all around this Highway 25 thing, and so now it's morphed into more of a regional operation that kind of acts like, you'd see like a Met Council act.
Right.
There's housing goals, and of course they project 99,000% population growth, transportation. It morphs into something it was never intended to be, or maybe it was.
Right. Well, I think it's, interesting, that, to see the group of people that they have. And you talked about a shared powers agreement. And for our listeners who maybe haven't heard those episodes in the past where we've discussed that's where two or more entities get together and they sign an agreement on how the shared powers are going to work, but they share the powers. Like in the Twin Cities, Crystal and New Hope have a shared powers agreement for West Metro Fire. So if there's a fire, either in New Hope or Crystal, there's one fire department that responds to that. Now, there's many cities and counties that are involved in this shared powers agreement. I'm not sure we quite understand what they're sharing yet, other than a shared vision for this corridor of land.
Well, and here's the thing. The thing that, but it looks like a Mado group.
Yeah.
Because when we all know what Mado groups are made out of, they're made out of elected officials and staff members from the cities and counties and townships below it.
Yeah.
And they have this, I think the big thing that I see here is this 2030 framework. In this regional vision, there's a big landmass that this is part of. And for them to all sign on to one, vision, that's not the word I like to use, but
yeah,
all agreeing to do the same thing, that sends up red flags to me on my radar right away.
Right.
Because it's kind of like, okay, what happened to, these individual cities, and why do we elect a mayor or anybody if a regional government's going to come in and tell them what they're going to build in their city, or how many houses they're going to have, or that they have to have some sort of community central center, or that, they've got to have X amount of this type of housing.
Right.
What's the point of having my local government if this is going to be pushed from local government representation collaborating with a bunch of cities that are miles and miles away?
A lot of these plans should already be in the city's comprehensive plans.
Right, but remember, this is a regional thing.
Right.
So
they always push their own agenda, though.
The whole point is to get the comprehensive plans to be the same.
Right.
That's the long-term goal.
In the cities, and I'm worried that with the townships, that these cities can then gang up on the townships as far as annexation and things like that, because we already know that townships are at a disadvantage, that cities can come in anytime they want to take adjoining pieces of land for commercial and other interests, whether that's higher density housing, whether that is malls or whatever they want to do. And townships are always at a disadvantage. Townships are not allowed to build whatever they want in the township. There are strict rules about how dense things can be, what you can build, what you can't build.
Many times they're dependent for some services on the local city or county.
Yep.
Which, of course, can then in turn
be withheld from a group like this.
Yes. Yeah, just say, well, do it our way, or, So, I don't know that county sheriff's office can do that, but certainly other things can be.
Absolutely.
The sheriff's office is independent.
Counties do it to cities all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You do it our way, or we're not helping you.
But it's interesting when you go through this 2030 framework. and you look at everything that it touches on, that's where it's time to get scary.
It is, and there are certain buzzwords throughout here, and this isn't even the plan. This is just getting ready to do the plan, but there are already buzzwords that are popping up. And anytime you hear these buzzwords, when you're talking about planning, central planning, regional planning, your ears should stand up, and you should be worried. One of those things, 2030. Agenda 2030 from the United Nations, that with the Great Reset, they're trying to accomplish goals by 2030. The Met Council recently had their 2030 plan. They've upped it a little since then, but Greater Minnesota is kind of lagging a little behind, and that's normal. But 2030 is kind of one of those buzzword numbers where you got to try and have all these accomplishments by 2030.
Well, there's a million things that go into that, too. I mean, depending on whether that's environmental, whether that's financial, whether it's, 2030 happens to be the next time we do a census.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things there. But I am struck by the housing, land use, transportation, jobs that is in this. I mean, you're talking about there's a reason people move out to Big Lake or Becker or Monticello. It's because they don't want to be in Brooklyn Park or Maple Grove or for whatever reason. It's their choice.
Right.
And when I look through these plans, what I see is a push to make it more urbanized, make it denser. But that's not what the people who move out there want.
Right.
So, this connectivity to the next, trail or something like that. I mean, you see, like you said, all of the buzzwords, all of the things that send up red flags to you and me reading this 15-page document.
Yes.
I mean, I see them everywhere. Housing diversity. Now, let me translate what that means. That means less single-family homes and more mixed use. I mean, out in Becker.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to want that in Becker.
I live in Plymouth, and I don't want that.
They call this an economic development project. And again, this is a term that planners use.
Right, but it's back to like we said about the bonding bill, calling it a jobs bill.
Right.
We're back to word games.
Right. According to, again, to show this is not something that they just came up with, according to the University of Delaware...
Well, that's relevant to Minnesota.
Economic development can be described as a program, set of policies, or activities that seek to build capacity for self-sustaining, long-term economic growth. While state governments and local nonprofit economic development agencies or organizations often take the lead in developing economic development programs, local governments can play a major role to plan for economic development that bolster jobs, the local tax base, environmental sustainability, social equity, there's another buzzword, and a good quality of life. So.
Well, they make a big deal, too, about do you think this is a problem, Jay? Listen to this section on housing. Fewer residents both live and work in the region, and a majority of the workers live outside the partnership communities. That suggests issues with job quality and housing affordability or availability. The trend limits the region's competitiveness related to workforce and tax and increases the tax burden for residents. Is that true? I mean, stop and think about it for a minute. Just because you drive, I can have a good job and not want to live close to where I work.
I would not want to live close to where I work. In most cases,
There's
in
pros
most
and cons to
in
it.
most jobs that I've had in the past, I wanted to be as far away as possible when I was not there until I was self-employed.
But I mean,
Yes.
I don't see a problem with. I mean, I live in Hennepin County and I work in Anoka County. Does that mean Hennepin County has no jobs or no housing or no? No, it just happens to be that there's where I live. There's a certain circle of area that I'm willing to drive to, and there's a certain area I'm not willing to, and I just happen to work in a county that I don't live in. It doesn't make the region any more or less attractive. It's just simply a fact of if you want to keep Big Lake, Becker, and Monticello the cities that they are, you can't bring in, you can't turn them into Maple Grove.
Right.
So either you do that or you don't. There's nothing wrong with working in Rogers and living in Big Lake.
Right. I mean, and that's why they call these places bedroom communities, is because you sleep there and you go somewhere else to work because you want to get away from that kind of life.
Let me add that the people working from home nowadays, the people who don't go into the office every day. I mean, there are ways to get around that too.
Right.
That somebody doesn't have to depends on your job, obviously.
Yeah.
But, the idea that you have to commute 30 miles, especially looking into the future. I mean, especially when I think about 2030, 2040, 2050, and where we may be energy-wise, or where we may be with, autonomous cars, or we've talked about those on previous episodes. To build up seems to be going in the opposite direction of where you're really headed. Mm-hmm. And, there's folks that retire to small communities like this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd really be scared of the way they are viewing this, that they have got to, build up, what are they saying? They're basically saying we need corporate headquarters here. We need, huge companies to come in here. And in the very same breath, if you go to a few pages later, it's all about helping small business and local shops. And
right.
It's like, well, you bring in the big stuff. Who's going to get drowned out of that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, and who's going to get all the tax breaks, Jay? We all know the answer to that. It's going to be the big guy. The big guy always gets it.
Mm-hmm. Always.
So, I mean, I don't understand how you can pursue both. And I'll tell you what really concerns me too is land planning. I mean, you're out in an area where you've got agricultural land, you've got obviously you've got commercial, but I think and look, a city like Big Lake is going to grow a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just going to. It's a desired area.
I mean,
they grow at a slow, steady rate.
It is a slow, steady rate.
And so why then does their land management need some grand plan?
I don't know. But if you look at their framework as they're trying to create this, they're done with round one. And they're trying to get into round two. Round two is engagement of the community. So they got together and they planned all this stuff, and now they want to try and sell the community on what they already planned. L1 is land use. Leverage the region's unique parks and natural resources. And some of the issues the strategy addresses: impressive list of natural and park assets, but limited awareness outside of communities, meaning people aren't going from town to town and using the parks and the whatever, or coming in from the outside. Protection is not guaranteed. Opportunities for greater access and connection. We know what that means: more trails, more
transit,
bike lanes. And, recognize and leverage the unique natural assets like the river, lakes, and park systems. Continue to develop access to the riverfront for recreational use, and use outdoor recreation opportunities as a way to drive tourism and economic development. Now, let me go to the one about continuing to develop access to the riverfront for recreational use. And let's take a look at a city like Big Lake. I remember it was just in the last year or two where they were dealing with an issue where there was a business that was vacant, and the city decided not to move forward with purchasing the land or holding the land temporarily for a while to develop that into parking so that people could use the lake, because they figured it's really not that busy where, there are certain times
year
of the
round,
year where they could park on the street and it would take care of it. And so they're not going to spend all the money. Now, say the county or the rest of this, pushes on Big Lake. No, you need to develop that so that more people have access, even though more people aren't demanding access, that more people have access to that.
But you know how you do that? You do that by projecting ridiculous growth numbers that nobody can maintain.
Right.
I mean, which we all know they're going to. What region ever projects that they're going to shrink?
None.
I mean, none.
The answer is none.
And by the way, I mean, remember something too. This is one thing that people have to remember about parkland. As much as I love parks and our lakes, and you got to remember there's a fiscal aspect to this.
Yes.
Think about it in Big Lake. They turn that into a parking lot. That land comes off the tax rolls. A business opportunity gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
Then that park has to be maintained and all of that by city expenses.
Yeah.
The paving, the plowing, the striping, whatever. I mean, it's a double whammy to tax. Now, look, that may not be a huge amount of dollars, but you got to start thinking about that. Same thing with regional plans, regional trails. It's not just the trail; it's the land right around it. Mm-hmm. You're not going to develop a house right there on a, you're going to make that trail into something. You got to maintain that trail. You've got to pave that trail. You got to patch that trail.
Yeah.
You might have to plow that trail. You might have to build a bridge somewhere to get across a frickin' creek or something.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, there's long-term costs and there's short upfront costs to every little decision like this.
Absolutely.
Or you can just have some dirt there. Maybe that's some people. Why can't you just walk on a dirt path? I walked on dirt paths, rode my bike on those. It seems like I just lived as a kid doing that. Mm-hmm. Why does everything need to be connected to the next regional trail in Duluth or Thunder Bay or wherever the next one goes? I mean, come on here. I mean, the idea that Monticello and Big Lake need to be connected by some sort of walking path, it's just, I mean, what the hell? And how about Big Lake Township passes right through there? Don't they going to say? Maybe they don't want a dang bike trail in their township.
Yeah.
I mean, they live there, right?
Right. Is that going to go through some farmer's property? Is he going to lose?
Possibly, and you know what's going to happen. It's a public good.
Yeah.
They're going to get a quarter of the money that it's probably worth. It diminishes someone's value, and if it's a farm, their ability to make money is also diminished because you potentially take away a section. Now, look, those are just little examples here. I mean, I don't know that that's part of this, but we all know that those things eventually happen, that eventually some employee doodling on their notepad or playing hangman on their computer or whatever they do all day is going to come up with some, hey, they're doing this over in Aiken County or over in Hubbard County or over in Morrison County, so we have to do it here.
Well,
this is how you get the grant.
There's some of that, but they're going to get that from League of Minnesota Cities, where here's how you get the grant, here's why you need the grant. A lot of this stuff will also come.
Some of these counties, hand out the grants themselves, and they're in the partnership.
Yep, exactly. But and some of these ideas come from places like the National Association of Development Organizations. They funnel it down to the Minnesota Association of Development Organizations, and then you have your counties and cities that all grab onto that. Now, when we read that the plan for Minnesota out of Mado, it had said right in there that they went and took ideas from different places all across the country, that they didn't write it themselves. And part of that was NATO coming up with things for Mado, but part of that was them going taking a look at like Denver and places like that. Now, this group also is free to go look at what Mado is doing across the state. There are free
best practices.
Yeah,
They're going to get
exactly
best practices.
from existing groups. They're going to look at the Met Council just because it's a big, already existing group that has a ton of power, been doing this for years on end.
And you know what's funny? I mean, there's not that many people in these cities. Why do they need, if I walked into these cities, you'd find their own comprehensive plan. You'd find their own, they all have their own planners. They all have their own. I mean, I think it's pretty. Look, if Sherburne County and Wright County want to call each other, and have some discussions, especially about Highway 25, I can understand because that goes from Monticello through Big Lake up to Becker, and then goes north to like Foley, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a regional. It affects a lot of communities.
Yeah.
And that's totally understandable. We went through this in our area with the Devil's Triangle. Remember that up on 81 169? I mean, that was a regional project. I mean, it took a lot of cities, and you had the county, you had
Osseo, Brooklyn Park,
Maple Grove,
Champlain.
Yeah, and add to it the MnDOT was the one doing the project. So I mean, when 610 came to town, I mean, that was another thing like that. But it stops there. Okay, Osseo can do what they want around. If they want to, I mean, they have a cool downtown.
Yeah.
I'm sure they don't want to change it, but under something like this, they we gotta have a people are driving too far away from Osseo to
well, and they
work.
have. I mean, they've started to put up. They've got apartment buildings that they've started to build.
Yeah,
in
they've
that little
slowly
downtown,
done
and
that. I mean, it's definitely going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I think.
I believe so as well. So, but that leads us. Okay, so once you have, you figure out what to do with all the rural land. You got to look at what you do with the people that are living in the area. L2 is promote a wider array of housing, and so the issues that the strategy addresses: limited housing variety compared to neighboring communities.
Yeah.
Growing issues related to affordability and diversity of housing options. Now, what they mean there is that there's no affordable housing, or there's not enough of it, and diversity of housing options means
Like we said, the high density.
high density, even medium density with like townhomes and stuff like that. Older housing stock will require investment. Well, I'm sorry, don't the people that own those properties put the investment into their own homes? Just saying.
I think so.
Delayed but significant.
Yeah, how can they? What do you mean it requires investment?
Suppose if they want to tear it down and build something new? I don't know. Delayed but significant impact from the 2008 recession indicates a vulnerable system. That was a long time ago, guys.
Well, I mean, it might be the old. And if you think about it, though, we're kind of following that same pattern that we were in 2008.
Community perspectives from round one create affordable housing options that reflect a wide range of prices and fit each stage of life. So life cycle housing is a term that we've talked about. That's another one of those buzzwords. They didn't use it here, but that's what they're talking about, where you have to have assisted living. You have to have entry-level stuff, whether that's high-density housing or starter homes. You've got to have...
So we have to have all that in Monticello.
Right.
Right.
Have the mix of housing necessary to attract workforce and families, and respect and complement the existing community character. Well, I don't care if you're putting up high-density housing in a place where it's not. That doesn't reflect the character of the community. That is changing the character of the community. And you want to attract workforce out to your cities and your townships. But at the beginning of this section, they say fewer residents both live and work in the region, and the majority of workers live outside the partnership communities.
Right. But I mean, like we said before, why is that a problem?
Yeah. Let people drive.
Let people live and work where they want to.
Of course, you can't have that because climate change. People have to live near where they work. They have to have the option to bike and walk and take transit. And
Right. So we're back to that.
yeah, you can't have.
I'm
people
surprised
living
there's
far
nothing
away.
in here about North Star.
Yeah, because that goes right through Big Lake.
Does it go that far?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
it goes to Big Lake. Yeah, doesn't go
Okay.
through. It
But
goes
remember,
to.
they wanted to push it to St. Cloud originally.
They're still trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
surprised that's not in here, though. What do you want to bet in?
Well, these are just high level.
What are we on,
statements.
round 2? Maybe round
Yeah.
3 will include that.
Yeah.
You just can't escape this stuff, man. I mean, you just can't escape it.
No, but that's the whole thing, and we'll get into this maybe more in the next topic in this document. But you can't have people traveling. You can't have people driving all over the place. You've got to keep people close together. You've got to be able to accommodate everybody in every place. And how do you account for that? How many elderly people that need assisted living at one time can you count on having? And the number's going to go up and it's going to go down. And maybe this city has it, maybe the next city doesn't. And, it's 10 miles away. Every city has to be free to do what's right for that city.
Well, and I think another thing too, when you talk about population, and I know that I saw this during my life, all the years I lived in Crystal. I mean, when I grew up in the 80s, early 90s, there were a lot of families in Crystal with kids my age.
Yeah.
And then there were a lot of empty nesters.
Mm-hmm.
And then those empty nesters left, and all of a sudden it was young families moving back in again. I mean, I know that
Right.
when I moved out of the city in 2016, I mean, there were never more. I hadn't seen so many kids in the neighborhood in 15 years. But it cycled naturally. That's another thing that worries me about this controlled growth, is that because of housing, and in Crystal, I don't know what the reason was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it could have been that houses are a little cheaper or something like that. But it was a cycle that. What if that repeats in some of these cities?
Mm-hmm.
What if all of a sudden, you plan for all these older folks to be there, and you plan for these, single people to live, and they're getting married later or not having as many kids. What happens? The next generation comes along and that completely changes. You can't go back and knock down the Winnetka Green and put up single family homes. You can't do that.
Absolutely not.
So it's the planning. It's got to be market based. It's got to be supply and demand has to figure that out. And with all this planning, I mean, these are the people who control the building permits and the zoning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't do it exactly, but they have a lot of influence on, who does exactly.
Right.
I don't know. It's scary.
It is, and zoning laws definitely have changed, and they're trying to promote more of this, social responsibility and sustainability, and they want to make sure that they keep a tight grip on those things, and especially as we move into some of the stuff, under the Great Reset and whatever, there are going to be these ESG goals that need to be met, environmental, social, and governance goals.
And we should mention too that they have a regional PowerPoint presentation on Framework 2030.
Yes.
That is interesting too. It is, of course, they project huge growth,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have before and after maps of how things may look. Monticello, you'll be glad to know, is already doing a 2040 comprehensive plan.
Show offs.
Yeah. So they're already going far out. There's guides to solar energy use. Of course, they have the downtown focus, which we see in these corridors, which is what they all get called.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, but there's a lot of land use. This corridor we're talking about is a 6,000 increase of residents. That's what they're predicting. Residential type, multifamily, semi-suburban. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Large lot and suburban
Huh.
is now being proposed as well. Semi-suburban is a mix of detached and attached home in a grid pattern neighborhoods. We know what suburban means. Multifamily, we know what that means.
Mhm.
High density. Large lot homes, which I'm sure they're going to be discouraged,
Yes.
is large lots in rural areas surrounded by parkland or agriculture. So there's a lot to this.
Mm-hmm. There is. Looking into L3 here, 'cause we talked about promoting a wider array of housing, which deals with, creating these smaller places for everybody to live, and then everything goes haywire here. Placemaking was the next one.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's a term that we've talked about as well. Placemaking is where, in development speak, and there's another one of those buzzwords, where you are centering your development around a place. The place gets all of these bells and whistles to make you want to stay in that place, not venture too far from it, where all your needs are there. You can get your groceries shopped, you can get your laundry done, you can do what you need to do. You don't need to drive. You can bike, you can walk. It's all pretty close together. High density, mixed use housing.
It's all urbanized.
Yeah, it's all urbanized. And sometimes they lately, they try to focus it even with an ethnic focus, making some of the artwork and the amenities in the area reflect certain cultures rather than
Whether those cultures are there or not.
right.
I mean, does Becker have a big Hmong population or something that needs their own? And I'll tell you what, that stuff just divides us even more. You know what? The idea that every group needs their own little space like that's the opposite of the direction we should be going in.
Yes.
That just makes a mockery of that. Just yuck.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. But placemaking, yeah, one of those things that it sounds great because we're going to make this place where we live really awesome, and we're going to be.
If you've got a nice little downtown, you've already got that.
Yeah.
By the way, what is this? When you talk about their structure, what is this voting members? So we have voting members.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the Politburo. We've got voting members and non-voting members.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they voting to do?
Well, I suppose any time that they, are I don't know if they pass resolutions per se, but
They got a joint powers agreement.
they do. I guess they can. Anytime they have to vote on anything, they can't pass a motion without taking a vote on it.
To pass a motion. Oh,
What?
sorry. Oh, a motion. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
not emotion.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So there's 9. There's 9 members
Mm-hmm.
of this beauty.
I remember reading something about there were 9 men with 9 rings, and then joined with all these other rings to serve the Dark Lord or something like that.
It must be it here.
JR
I love how
token,
they.
yeah.
I love how they have a conflict of interest policy. One of their conflicts of interest is not representing other government while serving on a regional board.
What?
Huh?
Didn't they all serve on another government?
Exactly. That's not part of their
Oh, that's
conflict
not
of interest.
part of it.
yeah.
I see.
There's even an application to join. Should we join, Jay?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that would get approved?
No, I do not think it get approved.
Yeah, that's not.
So I mean, look. Let's take a 30,000-foot view of this. I mean, if you're in one of these cities or one of these townships, I mean, and you're concerned about what say you're got a young family, you plan to live there for 20 years, 30 years, till you retire or your kids graduate high school. And you move to a city like Monticello or Becker, Big Lake, specifically to get away from whatever you're getting away from. I assume you choose to move out there. And you see your city slowly slipping, maybe, or planning to kind of not be what it is anymore. How in the world do you fight this? I mean, how in the world do you yell loud enough to where you don't want some of the things on here? And again, I'm all for the city of Monticello deciding to do something with Monticello residents, Monticello voters, Monticello representation. They want to have a trail from one end of the city to another, fine.
Yeah.
They want to have sidewalks in front of it, fine. They want to have a city downtown where everybody can, all 3 cultures in Monticello can have a mural, fine.
Yeah.
What I don't want is a regional government pushing it on them.
Right.
So where's the pushback?
Well, and
This is a partnership.
Yeah.
It is not Mado. It is not the Met Council. You know what I mean? So it is different.
Well, and this is the thing. This is pretty new. I mean, this is something that's not going to go away. I mean, they're trying to plan out for 2030 right now.
Yeah, obviously
This
they
is-
don't plan on going anywhere.
It's not going to go anywhere. Not unless you get enough good people in local government that will just choose to abolish it. But, because I don't think you need it at all. However, it's still in its infancy. It's gone through round 1. We're headed into round 2. So they have
How
their
many rounds is in the fight?
I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be a TKO in the 3rd, I think. Round 1, they made some general statements, things that they think are important to them. Now they're going to bring people in and try to sway them into, here are your options. You like A or B, rather than saying, what do you want? That's too open-ended a question. However, I encourage people to get involved with this if they can and get to be part of this, because that's how you're going to get change made. If I can go back to our origin story with the Botno partnership, we found out about the project too late. They had already been working on it a good 10 years or whatever, and we have too much work into this. We've spent too much money. We've done too many studies. We can't change it now. So you have an opportunity in this area to be able to change it by getting involved now in the early stages and working, on the inside of it. Otherwise, they're going to get way down the road on this, and they're going to go, we're 10 years in, we've spent a lot of money, we're going to have to, do this because we've already figured it out, and you're not going to like what they come up with, and you're going to have to live with it. And when you have that much money, that much time put into something, you're not going to have people that are going to willingly back off, even if you fill a city council chambers to standing room only, as we learned. You can have that place packed to the gills, people standing and people speaking to the city council out of their heart. This is how I feel about it. I don't like it. I don't want it. It doesn't matter because they put in the time, they put in the money. So you got to do it now.
So avoid the down the road. So we should look. When do they meet? When in tarnation do these people meet?
It is a mystery.
Is it? Aren't they required if they have a joint powers agreement to
They should say,
okay, hold on.
yeah, you finding it?
Yeah, meetings, agenda. Their last meeting was February 25th.
Yep.
Looks like they're meeting every month, every 2 months, maybe every month. Oh, boy. They had a lot of meetings in 2020. February 25th, no partnership. Business meeting replaced by Framework 2030 Round 2 Engagement Workshop. Oh, boy, does that sound exciting.
Oh, boy.
It says click here for summary, but here has no link. So I don't know where the hell here is.
Yeah.
Their meetings, regular partnership meetings, are held the fourth Thursday of each month from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m.
Oh, good.
at Sherbert County Government Center in Elk River.
Let me take some PTO for my job to go to this car wreck.
And let me also point out
Yes.
what they're saying, that they're having their meetings in Elk River,
Who's not
even part of this.
Right.
But that's the Sherburne County Government Center. So if you live in Becker and you want to drive to Elk River for one of these and take a half day,
Yeah.
from 7:30 to 9 a.m. So
Yeah.
nice
and convenient.
You're gonna have a workshop at 7:30 in the morning.
Ugh. Wow. Yeah, that's rough. Nobody likes that. I mean, I don't know. You've been in the corporate world, and I've been in the corporate world. How did you feel about the people that called 8 o'clock meetings?
Ask me how I feel about the people who call 1 o'clock meetings.
Wow. That's reasonable. You should be up and around by 1 o'clock.
Yeah, but it's after lunch, so I'm a little
that's
slow
true.
moving.
That's true. But it's the 8 o'clock meetings. It's like, man, I don't work till 9. Now I got to come in at 8? Thanks, buddy. So this is even worse. Was 7:30? You said? Oh,
7:30 to 9. What a time to meet!
yeah.
What a great time to get that public engagement.
Yes.
You know, and I'll tell you what. I mean, yes. Can you email? Can you? Of course you can. But to me, I mean, we're losing face-to-face contact.
Mm-hmm.
So much. I mean, there's nothing that replaces that. And I think you sit there, remember, those council meetings where you had a room full of people. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, replacing that with a bunch of Zoom just doesn't have the same impact.
No.
You just don't.
No, it does not. It does not. And, I think that, when you have them at that time, you do just have this kind of covering where the people who have to work can't come to the meeting, can't be a part of it. Maybe you receive an email or a voicemail, but it's not the same, as putting that pressure on somebody to consider their vote before they make it.
Yeah, I just think it's just so cheapens the process to have a 7:30 a.m. meeting. I mean, great.
Yeah.
That's just state does that all the time. The county does that. Met Council does that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got that open house from noon to 2.
Mm.
Wednesday afternoon. You better be there.
Right.
It's like, It's F you. I mean, just because you punch out at 11 a.m. every day doesn't mean the rest of us do. And it's impossible for residents to keep up with all these damn meetings. I mean, all these. I mean, you're talking about all these governments, plus soil and water people, plus the DNR, plus the state, plus the county next to you. I mean, how do you? Who can go to all these meetings?
I've said it before. You'd have to be a professional meeting goer.
Yeah, somebody'd have to pay you to actually do it with benefits and childcare to actually do this. I mean, look, this is something to keep an eye on. I mean, like you said, Jay, it's in its infancy, and we'll see what comes out of it. Regionalplanningpartnership.org.
Yes.
Check out everything we're talking about here. And once again, if you want no investigative journalism whatsoever, go to NPR and Channel 5 about the bonding bill. We'll break it down at some point because something's going to pass. We all know something's going to.
Right.
Unfortunately. And, oh boy, you got the declaration this week?
Yeah.
All right, I'll rev up the music. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. Community Solutions, once again, presents the master of disaster, the king of sting, the Terry of funk, the suffering of succotash, the king of sting, and everything in between. The men want to be him, and the women love him. We once again we present the sign-off sermon with Jason R. Bradley.
That's true. The R is for regal.
I gave you the middle initial
You
this
did.
time.
The R is for regal. Or maybe redundant. I don't know. All right.
Take your pick.
Yeah. Who cares? All right. Well, Minnesota, you got it. You wanted it. You asked for it. You got it. Another regional planning government body. Huh? I think that deserves a round of applause because, wow, when we go overboard, we know how to go overboard. You know what I'm saying? Speaking of going overboard, I don't know if you've been listening to the news at all lately. I try not to, but in this job, we have to so that you can go about your lives. And we touch on local stuff here, but I'm going to touch quickly on this H.R. 5, the Equality Act that they're coming up with over in Washington, D.C. Passed the House already and went to the Senate. It's important that we stop this. Now, I know it's going to need 60 votes more than likely, and then, so there's real good shot it's not going to pass. But you know what? We need to get ourselves in shape. And even if we are sure that it's not going to pass, we can't leave this to government. Government screws stuff up all the time. I mean, just look at the Republicans not stopping bonding bills. You elect them, count on them to represent your interests, and next thing you know, you got a $1.9 billion bonding bill sitting there that you're going to be on the hook for the next 30 years. Well, same with this. We cannot afford to have H.R. 5 pass. Why? Because it strips us of one of the most fundamental rights that we have as a people, and that is the right to the freedom of exercise of religion. Now, we got other bills going through, too, that look to strip our Second Amendment rights, that look to strip us of our voting rights. H.R. 1 just passed, and that's a terrible, terrible, terrible law or bill as well. That's about to go to the Senate. It's crazy. But we gotta stand up at some point, because if we don't, we just let them do it. We got to make them go through us to get there. We got to stand for liberty. We got to stand for truth. And we got to stand for our movement. Because if we don't, nobody else is going to. This is your movement. You own it. Do something about it. You know, we have to get in our minds that we have to be defenders of the faith. So anytime that we see something going on that threatens to dilute it, to infringe on our rights, we need to stand up and we need to do something about it. We cannot let the moment pass without letting them know that we see them. We know what they're doing and we don't like it. Even if they pass it, they've got to go through you to do it. This H.R. 5, you've got a right to your senators. You have to do it. Or you have to call them and you have to let them know how you feel. Now, Klobuchar and Tina Smith, oh, they're going to vote for it. Of course they're going to vote for it. But you know what? That doesn't stop me from letting them know how I feel about it. Because we have to decide that they're going to have to go through us to do it. We've got to put them on notice. Here's what I wrote to our esteemed senators just today and sent out, because here at Community Solutions, I put my money where my mouth is. I ask you to do something, it's because I've already done it. Whether that is getting a group together of activists, whether that is running for office, whether that is doing something like this. I've already done it. And that's what gives me the right to ask. So here's what I wrote. Now, it doesn't have to be as elaborate as this, but might give you some ideas. Dear Senator Klobuchar, I'm writing to you today concerning a legislative bill that is very troubling to me. This country has a 245-year history of pursuing equal justice. We haven't always gotten it right. In fact, there are dark periods in our history where we could not have gotten it more wrong. Well, I believe the framers of the Constitution built mechanisms into it that would chip away at slavery until it was completely eradicated. And we need look no further than the original draft of the Declaration of Independence to see Thomas Jefferson's heart on the matter. It still should never have been legal to own another human being in this country. We should never have put the Japanese in internment camps during World War II. Also, the human trafficking epidemic runs rampant through our streets every day, with children being ripped from their families, transported to an unknown location, and put into slavery. The absolute fear and sorrow they live with every single day is too overwhelming for words. On many other occasions, we've gotten it right, and liberty is advanced. The abolition of slavery, granting women the right to vote, freeing the Jews from the grip of Nazi Germany, and the countless inventions and innovations that have come from American investors and business people that have increased the quality of life around the world, all because they had the freedom to do so. I believe, however, that we are on the precipice of another dark time in America. We are facing a choice to, once again, defend equal justice, or to pursue a situational justice that is favoritism masked as equality. Bill H.R. 5, the Equality Act, gives rights to a few that override constitutional protections that have been in place since our Bill of Rights was ratified. There's a principle that states that our freedom only reaches as far as our neighbor's property. The second that our liberty starts to constrain theirs, we have overstepped. H.R. 5 is all about overstepping and is anything but equal. This bill removes the protections that the First Amendment grants to Christians, Jews, and Muslims to free exercise of religion, as it forces them to violate major tenets of their faith in order to be in compliance with this act. We don't want, at least the vast majority of us who actually follow our faith, we don't want to punish LGBTQ people in society. We also believe that God creates each of us with an identity and a purpose. When we as humans create an identity for ourselves over the one that God has gifted us with, we are out of line with the faith. I empathize with the plight of those that struggle to find identity. It is so difficult to feel like you don't fit in. Unfortunately, the search for identity doesn't mean that we can start to violate the constitutional rights of others. To force those of faith to support or endorse beliefs that are diametrically opposed to our core beliefs is not a free exercise of religion. At that point, government becomes our God, as they decide which principles from Scripture we are allowed to uphold or not. Would you freely accept a conservative Republican that identified and ran as a Democrat? Would you allow him or her to hold leadership positions? I'm asking you to consider the equal rights of all people, not just a small subset of society, and vote no on H.R. 5. Equality should be held up for all people, but this bill makes some people more equal than others. That is not an American value and only threatens to move us into a dark period where some will have to fearfully make decisions on whether to follow God or government, and that is unconscionable. I know that you will receive great pressure from your caucus. I am urging you to stand and put people before politics. Many of your constituents are also church-going people. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Jason R. Bradley, the King of Sting, the Suffer to Succotash. Okay, I didn't put that last part in there. But you get the idea. We have to make reasoned, impassioned responses to these things. We can't go in guns a-blazing and say, oh, you can't do this. You can't give the LGBT people all this power. You can't restrict us. I'm gonna come and I'm gonna live the way I want to. You can't do a thing about it. You do that, you're not gonna make any headway. You're probably not gonna make any headway anyways. But as far as winning friends and influencing people, that's a definite negatory. So, what do? You got to be reasoned. You got to be level-headed. You got to wisely choose your words, but you have to stand. Because if you don't stand, it's a done deal. And you don't get a say. You put all your faith in the government basket. Don't worry, government's going to save us. When is the last time the government has ever saved you? The answer would be never. Not once. For salvation does not come from government. So what do? Like I said, concerning H.R. 5, write, call, email your senators. But it's bigger than H.R. 5 because this overreach is happening everywhere. It is happening at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. We're getting regional government. Things like this Mississippi River Partnership is going in. And they only come to you for advice when they want to sell you what they already agree to. When they have a limited set of choices for you to pick from. So what do? You got to bring people together. You can't stand alone. You can't be an island. Too many times in this business, we have come and we've talked to people, and people have decided to go and do it on their own, but we have yet to see anybody else succeed the way that we have succeeded. The people that have joined with us and have worked with us have been able to find success. Why? Because we're forming a coalition of people that believe the same things, want the same things, and we cannot just sit idly by and wait for it to happen, because it will not happen. So please, share these podcasts. The day and age that we're in, it's too important for you not to share this with those that you love. And I see a lot of you have been doing that. The numbers have been growing really steady, and we're super grateful. But we need more. We need more people. We need more bodies in government. So that's a start. Like this podcast, share it. Tell everybody about it. But you know what? At the end of the day, you're also going to have to take stock of where you're at. you're going to have to decide, am I in or am I out? If you're out, you're going to receive whatever they give you. If you're in, join me. Join us as we move forward. You want to join the fight? You want to tell us what's going on in your area? COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is COMMsolutionsmn@gmail.com. We would love to have the opportunity to talk with you. We're going to go away. We're going to come up with another podcast in a week. It's going to be even more amazinger than this one was. So, you sit tight. Don't you go anywhere. Because we love you, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to get to work. If I get too caught up